Hello again. I'm Chris Abernathy, author of the Detective Whiskers Cozy Mystery Series and your host for the Cozy Pets podcast. This is where we go behind the scenes and get the real scoop on our favorite felines, canines, and other animals of the cozy mystery world. Each episode includes an exclusive interview with a cozy mystery author who joins us to talk about the pet or pets in their books. And today we're going to find out all about Milo, the feline star of books and bribes and the rest of a bookstore cozy mystery series. So here to tell us about Milo is author Lucinda Race. Lucinda, good to see you.
Thank you. It's good to be seen. Chris, thank you for having me today.
Mhm. So I believe I saw Books and Bribes recently featured as an editor's pick on Kobo. Is that right?
It's actually been, I think, an editor's pick on Kobo and Barnes and Noble.
Yeah. So you're not exclusive to Amazon. Your books can be found at all the major retailers then.
I am wide and I am in Kobo Plus, and also Milo and friends are starting to make an appearance in audio.
Cool. As a matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned audio because I'm currently working on putting together book two in audio for my series, and I'm doing full cast. So I've got a lot of different narrators, one of which is Megan Kelly,
Really?
who narrated your books.
Megan is my voice of bookstore heaven in Pembroke Cove.
Yeah,
So yeah, she's
she's
wonderful.
wonderful. Yeah, I love her, love her. So I think, and looking at the reviews, your readers love her too.
Yes. She's got a great voice and she did a great job bringing everybody to life. Basically, I only had one character that I wanted her to tweak a little bit when she sent me the sample. She nailed everybody.
Yeah, very, very
So
talented and great to work with, um, and enjoys interacting with fans and stuff too. So
she does. She's awesome. So
yeah,
yes. So the bookstore Cozy Mystery, the first five books are in audio already, and we're starting six and seven in January and February. So as fast as I'm writing them, she's narrating them, I think.
very good. So if people start listening to them right now, they'll have plenty to keep going with. Yeah.
Yes. And if
All
you're
right.
in Kobo Plus, audio is also in Kobo Plus.
Cool. All right. So we're here to talk about the pets, not the
Yes,
narrator.
we
Sorry,
are.
Megan. All right. But the pets, today we're going to talk about Milo. So your main character is Lily Michaels. She owns a bookstore in Pembroke Cove, Maine. One day she bumps her head and her world completely changes. She and Milo are alone in her bookstore, or at least she thinks so, but she starts hearing a deep, gravelly voice, right? How does that go?
Mhm. Well, actually, in the prequel, that is, if you subscribe to my newsletter, you would get the prequel. She adopts this cat at the local shelter and she brings him home and she's taking over the family bookstore. And so Milo hangs out at the bookstore all day long with her. And her aunt gave her this old dusty book and is like, this is family history. You should read the book. And she just keeps putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And so she's putting this book on a shelf because she's not going to read it. And she falls back, knocks her head, and Milo, she wakes up, Milo's on her chest, and she's hearing this voice, it's about time, that you open the book because now the book's open. And and she just like, oh my gosh, who's in my bookstore? And so, she's like panicking, who's in my store? And it turns out that Milo's talking to her and he's been waiting all of this time for her to open the book because he is her familiar, although she doesn't realize that she's a witch.
Yeah, and I noticed you
She
didn't put he
doesn't
was
know
been
up to this
patiently
point.
waiting. Not,
He was impatiently waiting. As we discover throughout the stories, Milo is not the most patient, and he always will say to her, "My dear witch," and he usually has this snarky little tone in his voice
little
because
condescending.
Milo's just got this great snark and swagger about him. And like if he was a person, like he would be the class clown or the guy in the office that was always just shooting off one-liners. So Milo is really, he's not just the familiar, he really is his own character in the book. And
Right.
he's an important foil for Lily in her learning magic, but not just that, but not letting herself take herself too seriously, but trying to guide her.
So he's one of these kind of characters that don't get offended by what he says to you. Get offended if he doesn't say something snarky to you. Is that right?
Exactly, exactly. And he gives everybody nicknames, like there's Detective Cutie. He names another character Detective Sweet Tea. And then, Nikki, her best friend, as we're moving into the series, he starts trying out, new nicknames for her. And she's like, "What's wrong with my name?" And he's like, "Because you're worthy of a nickname." So, it's his way of just including people into his life if he bestows a nickname on you.
Mhm.
So he's quite the character. I love him. I love writing him.
He's one of those cats that when you get the feel of the personality, really makes you start wondering about any animals in your own home and what they may be thinking.
What are they thinking when they look at you? And, I have two little dogs, and sometimes that Jasper, who's the mini dachshund, he'll lift his head up and he'll look at me as if to say, "What are you doing?" And that's kind of like some of his antics are definitely catalyst to what goes into the book because of how he looks at me. My other little dog, I swear, is clueless to life. As long as there's kibble in front of him, he's happy. But Jasper really is very expressive. So he's kind of the catalyst for Milo.
So you've got a couple of dogs. Do you have any cats? Is there a cat that inspired Milo?
Yes, our old cat Morty, who was actually my daughter's cat, and he passed about, geez, 14 or 15 years ago now. And we adopted him from the veterinary clinic nearby, and he was a priest's cat. And the priest was going to a new parish and he couldn't take the cat for whatever reason. So he took them to our local vet and, he said, "Can you make sure that, Morty gets a good home?" And so my husband, Emily, my youngest daughter, had been asking for a cat. My husband goes down to the shelter or to the veterinary office and he brings this kitty home in this, cardboard little kennel thing. And she walks in and she just flipped out. And he was the love of her life. He was a great cat. And he loved deli meat and he would sit on top of the cabinets. So she put a pillow up there so he could get up at the very top of the cabinet and sit, and watch over us. But you know how, like in Star Wars, Yoda, his ears would flatten out when he was
Mhm.
thinking deeply or snoozing? That was Morty. He would do this Yoda thing where
Wow.
his little ears would just, and utterly content. But he was so expressive. And he's an orange tabby. He wasn't gray like Milo, but definitely that tabby came from Morty into Milo.
So we ever get any Yoda from Milo? Smart, you are not. Or
I did not do that because I'm really trying to let Milo stand on his own and
right.
be his own little snarky character, even though I think Yoda was full of snark too. Because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So he definitely had that smart, that snarkiness in the way he delivered his, backward kind of lines. But yeah.
Mhm.
So there's definitely inspiration from my life.
So how does Milo fit in to the investigations? Is he play an active role in helping to figure out what's going on?
He plays an active role. He's not necessarily a catalyst in the conclusion, but he has a familiar network in Pembroke Cove. So he always goes out, not always, in a lot of the stories, he'll go out and talk to his network.
Hmm.
And Lily's shocked that there's a network of familiars in the area. It's like, how many witches are there? And so he does that and he can read. We find out, I think, in book 3, no spoilers, that he can read. So he'll actually study the board and he'll ask her questions, almost kind of like, bouncing things off of him. And he has a very sharp eye. He's very, very protective of her. So he always tries to put himself, in between her and danger, if he's there when the danger is happening. So he's kind of like the bodyguard, the smart sidekick, the low level investigator who comes and goes as he pleases. He's kind of a lot of different things
As he pleases. There's the key phrase for a cat.
as he pleases. Yes.
So you mentioned that he's got this network of the other familiars. Are they all friends? Are there some jealousies, rivalries with the familiars?
Nope, no jealousy or rivalry because in the Pembroke Cove Coven, they're their basically their rule is, you have to be a good witch. And so anybody who's in the coven has a good familiar. And Milo points that out to her at one point, when she's asking, about these other familiars. And he's like, if they're familiar in this network, they've got to be good. There's not any of that nonsense going on. So, I kind of made the familiar network pretty benign because I didn't want the thrust to go to the network. And her best friend Nikki has a dog, Murphy, who is her familiar, and he and Milo are very good friends. And Gage Erikson, who is the police detective in the town,
The
he
hunky
ends up
cowboy.
adopting, huh?
The hunky cowboy.
The hunky cowboy, gotta have a hunky cowboy. And he ends up adopting this Great Dane whose name is Brutus. And Brutus is not a familiar. And it irritates Milo to no end that he can't talk. Like what kind of animal can't talk? Is he just a lughead? The big lug is what he calls him. So, there's that kind of thread going on because Milo's a little annoyed because, all smart animals talk.
So Milo's able to communicate with the other familiars, but not with this dog. Is he able to communicate with other animals, or is it just cats?
No, he can, Murphy is a dog, so he communicates with other animals. Whatever the familiar is, he can communicate with them. Excuse me. So it's just that particular dog is not magical. He belongs to a human. Detective Erikson is not a witch in any way, shape, or form. And so when he adopts this dog from this murder scene, Milo is just annoyed, like, how could you not, how could you bring in to my house, to come visit this animal that does nothing,
So in
adds no
Pembroke
value.
Cove, it's animals are more likely to be familiars than not, huh?
Right.
Okay.
But the magical community is secret. I mean, all the non-magicals don't know that there's actually witches in town and familiars actually talk.
Mhm.
So, because only the people who can hear a familiar talk is if they're a witch.
Very cool. So what kind of feedback do readers tell you more about Lily or about Milo?
I think that Milo gets his fair share of good press, but I think a lot of the readers really like Lily because she just kind of stumbled into this. She's older. She's like in her late 30s, so she's kind of, and you know, she kind of turns around and turns out lights in the whole town by accident, kind of thing. So she's kind of bumbling through this whole magical thing, and I think that the sense that I get from readers is that people empathize with that as we all start new things and we all try new things, even older in life, later in life, we make all these mistakes and we kind of sometimes feel foolish and we get embarrassed if, we stumble or whatever. But she just keeps going, she just keeps trying. And she's always getting into some sort of mischief. And throughout the books, they finally realize they can't protect her from walking away from this. She's never going to. So they need to just bring her in as they can for her own protection.
Mhm.
So,
So you describe Milo as being, a protector and a sidekick and such. How would Milo see himself? Would he consider Lily to be his sidekick, or does he see himself as being there to support her?
oh, no, 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 no. Milo thinks he's in charge.
Mhm.
Milo, and I can't give anything away, but in book 8, we find out just how Milo is Milo and why he is her familiar and how he fits into the overall story. But Milo is, as we discover, a much larger part of the Michaels family. And he really is integral into her growth as a witch. So he doesn't view her as his sidekick, other than she's more like at times her servant, his servant, like to get him smoked salmon or tuna or whatever it is that he may want. And Lily can't cook very well. So he's like, just, buy me smoked salmon. You don't have to do anything to that. So he is kind of a character.
Good. I love to hear how you're talking about that in book 8 and how things are being revealed. A lot of times we'll see books where authors will really have a good character arc for the humans in their story, and the pets will be there, and they're good pets, and they serve a purpose in the story, but they don't always have an arc of their own. We don't continue to find out more about them. Their character doesn't develop as the series goes on, at least not to the degree that the human characters do. But I really love to see when the animals in the books, we see them to begin with maybe as just an animal that doesn't talk or doesn't have any role other than being a pet, which is a big role. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
Um, but we begin to realize that there's a real depth to their character as well, and we peel back layer after layer, book after book.
And even because I've finished book 12, which is right now the end of the series, unless people really want the series to continue. I have other ideas, but the way I've ended book 12, it's just spun the series in a completely different direction in a good way. I mean, everybody has had growth, including Milo. And I really didn't want Milo to be a static character because as Lily's powers have grown and as her confidence has grown, Milo needed to match that. It's almost like growing up with a tutor. Your tutor has to continually stay one step ahead of you.
Mhm.
Milo's had to stay one step ahead of her. But in book 7, some magicians come to town and they want that book and they're going to get it at all costs. And you see how much Milo is he's ready to lay down his life to protect Lily in the book. And it's like, I'm hoping that readers, when they read that, say, why was he so passionate about, stepping in between this very serious situation? So in book 8, in Artifacts and Amulets, it really is Milo's story. So it came about organically, but Milo didn't stop growing at the end of that book. We understand his backstory and we understand why he's Lily's familiar. But as we continue to book 12, he's still right by her side because there's something very, very important on the horizon. And Lily's still going to need him just as much as she has in the first 12 books.
Sounds like Milo may be a little bit older than Lily originally thought he was.
A wee bit,
Not to give away too much, but that's the sense I'm getting there.
a
So,
wee bit.
all right. So you've wrapped the series at 12, but possibly the characters will live on. I'm in a similar situation. I just wrapped up my Detective Whiskers series with the ninth book and brought everything to a conclusion, um, as far as the arcs go and such. But I've got a few different ideas of how I may, you know, use some of those characters to go off and do some different series. And part of that isn't it's waiting to hear back some more from the readers and find out from them what it is that they really want, isn't it?
It is. And I've already spun off one character into Robin's Point, which I introduced in book 5. I introduced Robin's Point with some characters and the Robinson family home. And so I've spun a character off there. I've written that first book. That's not going to come out next year because now I just created this whole very aggressive write and release plan for 2025, which might put me under. Um, but so I spun a character off in Robin's Point, and then to be totally candid, I saw these 3 covers in a pre-sale for covers. You know how different cover artists will put things up. And I fell in love with these 3 covers, and I'm like, I have to have those covers. And I looked at them like for the whole month before the sale went on. And finally I said, I'm going to buy these. I'm going to buy these covers. And there's a beautiful Himalayan cat on it. And it's like, I gotta have these covers. And I'm like, what am I gonna do with these covers? And I actually created a spin-off series in Drake's Bay, which I've introduced in the series that Drake's Bay exists. So I have Robin's Point and Drake's Bay above and below Pembroke Cove. So there's actually 2 related series, even though the Ghost series, which is Ghosts and Gowns, it will stand alone as its own series. There'll be some people that can come and go, but she's not a witch. She's going to be a psychic. and there's going to be a ghost in there, and there's still a cat. Her name is Lola. Although she doesn't speak, she's going to be much more of a traditional cat, but she still has that quirky attitude that Himalayans have. So I definitely spun the series off because the series has gotten such good reviews. And I think that Claudia, who is my new character in the book that I'm writing right now, I just started chapter 9, and I've already brought Lily and Nikki into the shop. So I think it'll work
Mhm.
and
Speaking of
spin off.
reviews, for anybody watching that's wondering what other readers think about this bookshop series, Amazon does this synopsis of reviews now, and I enjoy reading those because you get a good sense of what everybody overall is saying about the books. I don't know if you've looked at this for
I
your
don't read
work.
reviews.
Okay, well, this won't be an actual review, but it'll give you a sense of what some people are saying. Customers enjoyed the storyline and characters in this cozy mystery. They found the book entertaining and exciting with a new mystery and a little twist. The writing quality was well received and the narration was fantastic. Great when you get to mention the audiobook in there. Readers appreciated the witchcraft elements and the cat's talkability. The setting and town were also praised.
Good.
Mhm.
Thank you for reading that. I don't read anything like that. I never go below the fold, so to speak.
Yeah, a lot of authors won't do that. And then there are some of us that we're going to read every single review. And it's just a different mindset, isn't it? You know, we all want some feedback, but you have to be careful with it, don't you?
You do because, like, I did read one review when I first released books and bribes because it was my first cozy mystery. And I had written romance and romantic suspense up to that point. And I'd always wanted to do it, and I didn't think I could do it. And my husband said, just try. You've got nothing to lose. I'm like, yeah, okay. So I again bought 4 covers from a different cover artist and I created the series. So when I put books and bribes out and I started to read them, and somebody slammed me because there was witchcraft in the book. And I'm like, it's a paranormal cozy mystery. That's what paranormal means. You're going to have magic in there. And I've had some people who are very religious who says, I'm sorry, I won't read that. It goes against my beliefs. And I'm like, I'm okay with that. So I'm writing a non paranormal cozy as well. And, but it's like this one person gave me a 1-star review because there was witchcraft in it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really?
Hmm.
Like, whatever happened to the old adage, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all,
Yeah.
number one. But number two, I told you right up front what it was. New witch, Lily Michaels. So, because I do try to be very transparent in my cover copy. So I just find it funny. And then, of course, you get the trolls, which just give you 1 star anyway, and they've never even purchased the book. I swear, there's somebody out there that just likes to populate 1 stars on anybody's books. I mean, even the greats have them, and it's like,
Right.
you can say this book wasn't for me. I'm okay with that, and I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. But yeah, I really, I don't personally, I'll give somebody a 2-star review, not in my author name, by the way, um, in my other part of real life. And if it's like very poor writing, if they didn't use an editor, I've even messaged editors or authors before saying, I'm not sure if you really uploaded the finished copy because that can happen.
Can. It
We're
can.
busy doing things. Because this is just, full of typos or whatever. Um, but I try to always find something positive to leave for the author because I know there are authors who read every single word and that is their validation.
Mhm.
And I wish authors didn't because it can be so hurtful to them.
Yeah. It you have to be able to take it. You know, I've did
Mhm.
35 years in radio and television where you can't turn off the reviews. So, I've learned for the most part, I'm not saying I can't get my feelings hurt. I can. But for the most part, I've learned to be able to look at a review and say, okay, I did something maybe that put this book in the hands of the wrong reader. I didn't
Yes.
show clearly enough what kind of book this was. I need to fix that. And those are some of the things that I'm looking for is feedback that lets me know what the readers want more of and how I can make sure that the right readers get the books.
See, I use a service called Booksprout. And
Mhm.
I always upload my book onto Booksprout, and I've got some real die-hard readers on that. And it's always up in enough time that if there's something really wrong or if I've really messed something up, I've got one author or one reader that she will send me emails and she will say, what happened here? This is a duplicate sentence, or this
Mm.
character is really unlikable. Is that what you want? Which is okay, but this is how he's coming, or he or she is coming across. And is that your intent? And she's read everything I've ever written. So she's read 40 of my books.
And you know it's
And
coming from a good place.
I know it's coming from a good place, and I appreciate that. Um, so those generic negativity things,
Hmm.
I just kind of blow off because I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
Cool. All right. Well, we're running out of time, but Lucinda, very nice to meet you and wonderful to hear about Milo and sad to hear that, 12 books that's wrapped up. Maybe we'll see Milo again.
You might see Milo again.
Good.
You
All
might
right.
see Milo again.
All right. So that is today's edition of the Cozy Pets podcast. Thank you all for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel so you'll know when it's time to meet another author and their cozy mystery pets. You can also follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/author Chris Abernathy or visit my website, authorchrisabernathy.com. Lucinda, where can they find you and Milo online?
LucindaRace.com, and all my social media links are there. If you sign up for my Cozy Mystery newsletter, it comes out twice a month, the 7th and 21st. There are two different signups. One's romance, one's cozy. So just, you can sign up for both. They're different newsletters as well. But I'm everywhere, and let's talk.
All right, everybody, you got some new books to read, so I will see you next time on the Cozy Pets podcast.
Thanks, Griff. Bye-bye.
Bye.